Mick, thanks for your time. Hey, how'd you enjoy the Adelaide Oval experience?
Oh, terrific.
Yeah.
It really was fantastic, wasn't it?
Well, I meant on the back of how good the Oval is.
Rowie, thanks for the wine.
All yours,
Thank you
Mick.
so much,
Happy
mate.
birthday.
I think we must have all drunk it before the game, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Bone, how you going?
Good, thanks, Mick.
Look, the ground itself is a credit to those people who had the foresight, one, who put it together, two, and to retain something about it that is unique. And I reckon that end with that bit of grass area and the trees behind it is so special to Australia. I just think it's absolutely outstanding.
And you gave Port a pretty good rap, Mick. Do you reckon you met a reasonable team?
They're a very good side. Look, I'll take nothing away from Port, and I think that they will really run. In fact, I think they'll beat Fremantle this week. But I'll just say this, and I offered no excuses. Port were coming. I think when Ken Hinkley said to the media, we've got 41 and 44 players available. I looked at him with envy. We had 22 on the training track last week, of which 3 or 4 of those didn't play. We really have held our breath for. The draw had us play the last 8 games against sides in or just outside the 8. I don't know how that worked, but that's the way it was. Each one of them was a challenge. We drew in our breath, held it for as long as we could. I know this is a bit of a joke, but the boys went for a walk just after breakfast on match day. They come back with their hands on their knees. So now they did, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They were just. I've never seen them so exhausted during the week, and I thought, and then to lose. I think we lost 3 or 4 players that couldn't get up, and I thought, oh God, we're in real strife here. And I just thought if we can stay competitive, which we weren't. I'd say the first 10 minutes probably missed 2 shots on goal. That wouldn't change the course of the game, but the 2 shots on goal would have given us respectability by quarter time. It didn't happen, and from there on in, they dominated. Their running power was outstanding. Their spread of outside of their spread, but their spread of good players, I thought was. When I looked at the Fremantle, I'm a big plus for the Fremantle. I think Fremantle are a very good football side. When I look, I try to take the Carlton hat off and just look at games and just see what I can see. I reckon that both of these teams playing this weekend, it's going to be a shame that one of them's going to finish 5th, but I reckon the side that finishes 5th is going to have the same capacity to win like Adelaide did in the late 90s, because I just think that they're probably just as good as 1 or 2 sides in the top 4. And one of those 2 or 3 sides only have to have a little falter. And I reckon the 5th side, if it maintains, because let's face it, it's going to get a home final, can really, probably that first week of not having to travel from 5th spot will be an absolute bonus. And I will never be surprised this year that a 5th side can actually win a premiership.
Wow.
Mick, with all that what you were saying about your game, it adds more credibility to you. You've told us before the season's too long, games are too long, about some change there. I was looking at some stats today. GWS, not one player has played every game this year. Collingwood, only one player has played every game this year. Now, there was a time when, you have your 8, 10, maybe even more players play every game. Sure. That's a thing of the past, and that's a bygone era.
I think it's. I think what it is. Some teams will not have players play every game for the fact that they've got a great depth. Now we know that Sydney have got a great depth. Hawthorn have got. Look, you guys wouldn't know this, but our second side played Box Hill last week. That was our seconds playing Hawthorn seconds. We got beat by 130 points. Now, that gives you an idea where our list is with the injuries. Hawthorn, when I looked through that Hawthorn side, McAvoy was down there, Schoenmakers was down there, Litherland was down there, among others. Now, that's great depth. So, in other words, and Geelong, we know have got a fair depth. We know that I believe Fremantle have, and I dead set reckon Port have. So when you analyse, and Geelong, so when you analyse that, they were able to actually bring players out who you might say, well, they could have been part of that full season, but we're going to rest them up.
Yep.
And we as sides that are middle to bottom, you haven't got that luxury, because if you take out one of your better players, you're actually replacing with a kid that may not be ready. Look, I played 5 kids on the weekend who played between some first years and maybe 1 or 2, like Menzel play in his second year, etc. it's just, it's not a criticism of the young kids, because individually they're terrific young kids, but collectively, when they need to lean on a senior player, actually leaning on one of the kids that may have played, like Sheen at 23, played 3 games. Johnson's played 3 or 4 games. Holman comes into his first game. Graham's in his first year of football. Blah, blah, blah. It keeps on going. So what ends up happening, Bone, is that the pressure that's put on has to be absorbed by your senior players, and they just don't sustain it.
Yeah.
Bluey McKenna said to me midway through this year that he thought that his side would fade because they're just basically in their 3rd or 4th season, their kids. And interestingly enough, and I know he sure won't mind me saying this, but I speak to Heath reasonably regularly. He's a ripping young kid, and he said that after their last win, which turned out to be their 2nd last win, he said, look, stand by, because I don't know whether we'll actually win another game because the kids are that tired. He said, we're holding him up. That's Davis, and he's in and out of the side because of injury. He, Hunt, etc., they're holding all these kids up. We know they're going to be good players, but they can't get through a year of football, and that's why we're having these big blowouts. There's no question in my mind.
Graham Corns used to have a theory in the Crows that you could only probably absorb 2 of them. You could have 2 that hadn't played a lot, but otherwise you're right, that ripple effect and the impact on the other players was far too great. Do you define it like that, to have it to that sort of a number, or...?
I totally agree. Yeah. Totally agree. You have a look at the sides going around. They will bring in 1 or 2 players. They'll drop them. Look, Litherland, to me, he's been an outstanding player. He's in the seconds. Now that's probably good management, because he's probably getting tired. Take him back, take him at a lesser level, give him another little get a readiness to the finals, make him hungry, so he comes into the side hungry. If in fact he gets a game, he may not get a game, but what he'll do, he'll know what he's missing out on. So therefore, play seniors, go back, understand there's 50,000 in one game and 500 the other. Which one would you rather be playing in? So, but it does keep that. It gives that freshness about it. So, look, we can't help the fact that some sides have got great depth, and maybe that's just great recruitment. Maybe it's because of salary cap. Maybe it's because of just a good age distribution of players. But nonetheless, I know that in our case, we just haven't been able to, particularly last week, we haven't been able to absorb losing Everett, who I thought might have come up, didn't come up. Thomas through the game, Allard through the game. McLean didn't get through. And we were going to play. I was going to play Cruiser this week. Yep. Dead set going to play Cruiser this week. And as I was getting on the plane, they said to me, by the way, Matthew didn't play in the seconds because he got gastro. No. So in other words, as I said to Cruz today, next year I've actually recruited a 25-year-old, 26-year-old ruckman come forward who hasn't played a game, and I know can play. Was on the verge of an All-Australian selection a couple of years ago. So, the bonuses are they'll have them next year, but that doesn't help us this year, and that's what happens with sides. So Porter in a very, very strong position going forward with the list the way they've got it.
Mick, 5 rounds into the 2015 season, you'll break the all-time AFL/VFL coaching record of 714. And I know these things aren't super important to you because it's all about team, but the AFL has said to you, you can pick the AFL club you want to play, which is unprecedented. Who is it, Mick, for our 5AA listeners? Who are you going to pick?
Look, there's a couple of things. This is not false modesty, I really want to point that out. Look, I've known this is coming up for a while. My kids are all over it, and then it's, the club and so forth. And it's sort of like one of those things, you'd almost wish that number had been surpassed to the point where you can't get there, so therefore it doesn't become an issue then. But because it has become an issue, I look and think, I don't know whether I really want to jump this game, but I am so humbled by the league's letter that I got that I really looked at that and I thought, this is probably the most humbling letter I've ever had in my life, because I just don't see the total significance of it, but clearly the AFL do, and our club does. I know whatever happens, and this is the worst thing, that I'm going to offend some clubs, and I don't want that. I don't want to offend clubs, but I want to do what's best for Carlton, quite frankly. That's it. In a nutshell, I want to do what's best for Carlton, and the fact that the AFL have given me the opportunity, I want to do the best for the AFL as well.
But Mick, we know how modest you are, and we've got to know you really closely over the last couple of years, but it is huge, it is significant, it is an amazing milestone. Nobody would have ever thought that record would be broken, and it's yours to do, and it is unprecedented that the AFL are going to let an individual pick the team he wants to play. But there's West Coast where you won 2 flags, there's Collingwood where you won 1, you started at Richmond, you went to St Kilda, and then there's the Bulldogs. So I've narrowed it down to 4, because it can't be Richmond, because you play them round 1, don't you?
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, I started at St Kilda. I suspect that in reality-wise, the Saints was I was a position in. I got there not by the draft, but by I forget what you even call it now. That's how long ago it was.
Form 4?
Well, no. It's a sort of like a country area that was belonged to that particular.
Oh yeah, zoned.
Zones. Sorry, that's the word. And then I went to Richmond. I owe a lot to St Kilda, but I owe a massive amount to Richmond because they gave me another kickstart in playing a premiership with some great players and a great coach. And Alan Hughes at St Kilda was outstanding too. I've been blessed with the coaches. But then I look at Footscray and say, they plucked the player out of. They hadn't coached anything. And they said, we think you can coach. I mean, what do I owe Footscray? I owe them so much. I owe them absolutely so much. And then to be plucked out of Footscray, who were, was my worst year in that year. It was almost merged with Fitzroy. To be plucked by a Western Australian side in front of an all-star coach in Western Australia, and you think to yourself, this is unbelievable that a club would actually give me that opportunity. I signed for 2, thinking 2, which turned out to be 10 years. I owe so much to the West Coast. And then I was coming home through personal, my father was dying, and I was Nanette for that matter. So we decided we had to come back, and to be picked up and given the opportunity over 12 years by Collingwood. In that 12 years, night times included, I was able to be part of 8 grand finals, which I think that sometimes that escapes people. We were in 5 day going finals and 3 night grand finals, and I owe so much to Collingwood. So, and then to come to Carlton, I'm always owing.
That's an amazing journey.
I really am in front, and I owe so much. So I am loath to even. I'm going to hunt through this to find out what is best. But I think it's going to be best for what's best for the AFL and Carlton.
Well said.
I think that they should make the decision, but I'm delighted that they've given me the...
Yeah, well, what an amazing journey. We've got to let you go, Mick, but one last one. We've debated all show that the AFL fixture, and they're going to make some significant changes next year. Gil McLachlan floated it. Bone and I and our listeners reckon a 17-game season. Bang. Let's just do it.
Won't happen. I think the media will... I don't think the AFL can... But they will know that there'll be substantial cut to the licence, not the licence,
revenue.
Yeah. That won't happen. I'm like you. I think the season is too long, but I would say the game is too long. If we're able to get the game under 100 minutes, around 90 minutes playing time, so we know there's supposed to be only 80, we're up to 120, sometimes 130.
Yep.
I reckon if we can get the game nearer to 90 to 100 minutes, I don't think we'll have as much fatigue problems, and I don't think the supporters will be bored like they can be when there's a big blowout, because I don't think the blowouts will be as significant. And I think it keeps it tighter and makes the game a lot closer, which means that people will be still glued to it.
Well done, Mick. Well, I don't know what's harder, you looking after the grandkids. Alicia told us you're doing that today, or coaching Carlton Footy Club or any team for 700-odd games, mate. Thanks for your time. Brilliant.
Thank you, guys, and I owe you a lot, you guys.